Very much. Very good. Thank you. And our second presenter of the evening is a representative from Fortis.
Good evening, Your Worship, Councillors and Administration. Thank you for allowing Fortis to be here today. My name is Nikki Smith. I am the Stakeholder Relations Manager for Fortis for the City of Beaumont for Fortis, Alberta. And this is Dave Hunka. He is the Manager for Municipal and Key Accounts for Fortis, Alberta as well. So we're here today to talk about and address some of the concerns that you've recently had from Battle River's letter. I'd like to start out by saying Fortis and the City of Beaumont have been partnering with the Municipal Franchise Agreement for 20 to 30 years approximately. So this, being partners definitely means a lot for us as well. With this bylaw in place, this will allow Fortis to align with the municipal boundaries with this current annexation and allows us to build and operate and maintain our distribution facilities within the municipal boundaries. With the recent annexation, there were 19 sites that fall within the city boundaries that are being served by Battle River. And today, I'd like to first point out the concerns that the REAs have been submitted to the AUC throughout the hearing are the same concerns that were brought forward to you guys, and they found no merit at the AUC ruling with respect to those same concerns. So by approving this bylaw, this will ensure that all the ratepayers within the City of Beaumont will have access to the same services as well as the benefits offered by Fortis Alberta. And this this also aligns with the franchise agreement. Any affected REA sites will be compensated to the REA. Do you want to touch more on that?
There's an industry standard. It's called replacement cost, new minus depreciation, that when distribution companies want to transfer assets in between them. So that calculation is a standard process, and then that's how assets are evaluated. So the REA will be compensated for their assets, no different than the Edmonton annexation that's going on right now. We're losing approximately 200 sites there. It will be on the same way with them. So these really are, we probably go through 15 to 20 of these a year. We have annexations in place, and that's what happens as far as transferring of assets.
And with that, there's no impact to the municipalities in terms of this is all covered. Any financial burdens are covered through the franchise agreement that we have in place. Okay. So touch a little bit on the customer's bills. And this will address Jeff's point about the farm services. We have no farm services. As part of our terms and conditions, we do not have farm services within municipal boundaries that are urban. So with that, the farm services that will be transferred will typically become a residential service.
And on a residential rate, that's the key thing.
Yeah. So what that means is the Battle River Farm customer will become a Fortis residential customer, and this will provide a monthly savings of approximately $20 to $60 less than their current Battle River bill that they're receiving today. Any sites that are commercial sites, these will have to be reviewed. We don't know exactly what they have, so they'll have to be reviewed individually, and they'll be placed on the appropriate rate based on what type of facility they have, what they're doing for their course of business, those types of things. Did you want to add to that?
Just to add to that too, I mean, if any customer came forward or any of the 19 that have concerns around what their rates will look like, we're more than willing to sit down and do a rate comparison. Over a 12-year period or 12-month period is probably the best thing, because I think, as Jeff brought forward, there's differences of times a year, so you want to take a look at what it looks like for the whole year. So we're more than willing to sit down with anyone and go through what that will look like, and I'll also find out more of what Jeff is. Is he is it going to be a residential service, or is it going to be a residential and also a commercial service? It could be something like that. That's rare, but I would say for 99% of the sites, when they come over, they go from being a farm service to residential service.
So we just want to communicate with Fortis Alberta as being part of the City of Beaumont and providing distribution services here. We are safe and reliable. All of our rates are approved by the AUC, the Alberta Utility Commission, and they are the governing body who protects consumers. We invest in all of our new services as well as any upgrades. So what that means is we apply investment that will reduce the cost for any upfront costs. Did you want to add to that at all?
Yeah.
8 seconds, okay.
Yeah.
And most importantly, there are 32 registered retailers in our service area that are both competitive and regulated, and they provide the choice to all of Beaumont's residents for their energy electricity provider. And I'm beeping.
It's beeping. Are there questions from members of council for the representative from Fortis tonight? Councillor Andrew Kirk.
Thank you for coming in to speak tonight. Looking to the decision that sees in the Appendix E, it said that there were, I counted, there's 83 affected municipalities that were identified in the decision that was made in the AUC. Out of those 83, how many of the affected municipalities have put a bylaw like this through to date? Do you have that information?
So I can speak to my area. I had 9 municipalities that had similar situation as Beaumont, and all of mine have passed except for I have one left that is in the process today, going through the same as you guys. So
What physical area is that?
I'm sorry?
What physical area is that?
Surrounding Beaumont. The city of Leduc is left to do their bylaw as well. But other than that, my area as a whole is everything west of Edmonton.
And just to answer, so actually I think there's 43 municipalities that were affected.
The list says there's 83 on the list in Appendix E. I counted them. So
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's accurate. It should be around 43. Right now we have all but 4 are willing to proceed. So and one council, there is no mayor and council at the moment, so they can't do anything at this time. And the others have actually we said that we'd come back and talk to them later about it. So
okay, thank
otherwise they're proceeding.
Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, just wanted to clarify something. Just correct me if I got this wrong. From what you just told us, the typical farm switching from Battle River supplier, distributor, I suppose, to Fortis would be regraded as residential or residential commercial.
In residential, in most cases, like 99% of the time.
Okay, and would typically expect to see a drop in their electricity bill from you versus what they were paying before, and that applies even if they're a large consumer of electricity, as in the way that Mr. Wallace just described.
That's right. So depending on how much they use, they would see a drop of anywhere from $20 to $60 per month.
But that's not what the Battle River estimates have been.
Yeah, we don't know what they based their numbers on. My understanding they based it, from what I heard, is on Battle River farm rate to a Fortis Alberta farm rate. And we're seeing that that's the completely wrong comparison. And this happens a lot, actually. It's actually it's going to be an REA farm rate going to a Fortis Alberta residential rate.
So essentially, you're assuming that they have miscalculated when they provide that new rate.
Yeah, and that's why we also offer to sit down with any of the customers and go through that with them to get the clarity that they need.
And anybody could, sorry, I'm running on. And any of those customers could ask you for
absolutely
for an assessment of what their new rate would
and it's
be.
an all-in comparison. So it's got the retail side of the business, whatever retailer they normally have, we can enter that in to show them an actual bill-to-bill comparison, and that's where we find it's the most valuable.
So how long does that typically take to do that process for anybody who's concerned?
And no, like
is it days or?
No, we would usually do it on the phone. Typically they would send us 12 months of bill, and then we would show them what they would have billed on Fortis for 12 months.
Great, thank you.
Quick clarifying question. You guys actually aren't in the retail business. You're in the
Correct.
wholesale, so you would be doing that comparison with whatever retailer the client had chosen.
Yeah, if they have a competitive contract, then we would do it with whatever their competitive contract is. If they don't have one, then it would be RRO, regulated rate option, and we would compare it to our regulated rate option, which is provided by EPCOR.
Okay.
And then they have the choice of picking their retailer out of the 32 options they have throughout our service territory, which they can find on the UCA Helps. There's a list of them all there as well.
Okay, so we're not actually talking about people buying power directly. We're just talking about who owns the lines.
Buying power. So as the retailer.
But I'm talking in this situation here, this bylaw is really about not who provides the power or sells the power, but who owns the lines.
That's correct.
Okay. Councillor McGossman. Sorry.
Thank you, and thanks for coming in today. Councillor Stout asked several of my questions. I just wondered if you could clarify your process, the change from REA farm to Fortis. You're saying residential, but then you also said that it could be commercial. So who makes that decision, I guess, in terms of, I guess what I'm trying to find out there is, I mean, you're selling a story here, and that's good, but if it comes down the road that actually, no, you've assessed it, and realistically, based on these regulations, we think they're commercial. So what stops that from potentially happening?
So we would look at, is there a residence on the land, other criteria around, like you wouldn't give a residential rate to like a large industrial customer that might use megawatts of power. That it just wouldn't make sense.
Have you done that assessment of those 17 properties?
No, because we don't know. We don't have any of that information. So we're waiting for BYLAWS to provide that to us so that we can properly go out there and talk to those customers and do that comparison.
Thank you.
Which is why we are here today requesting that the bylaw goes through.
Thank you.
Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, thank you. Just further to my last questions there, do you recall the 4 that were unwilling to proceed? Do you recall which municipalities those were?
Off the top of my head, to be actually honest, yeah.
Okay. Next question was going to be if you could recall as to why they didn't proceed. I think that might be decent information to have as well.
To be actually, let me just think. Because I know one, they don't have a council. I think the other ones just felt at this time they just didn't want to go through. We had some new CAOs, and then I know in one case he didn't want to have this bill or this not bill, but a bylaw for his first one.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, it's putting you on the spot, but thank you for recalling what you could.
Yeah, I have a little spreadsheet at work that has we keep track of what stage you're in.
Thank you.
Councillor Ryder.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you very much for clarifying some of the questions already. And I just have one further one, and that's around your offer to communicate the comparisons to individual residents. Do you leave that to the municipality to let people know that, or is that something that you contact people? How does that happen, and how can we be sure, and as Councillor Monkhoff-Swain said, that people are going to get that service, because once we pass the bylaw, it's a done deal. So
yes.
Just want to make sure that we don't see anything. We haven't had enough time to really read all the fine print, so I really would like some assurances that what you say is what you're saying it publicly, so I assume you wouldn't be saying that if you didn't mean it.
Yeah, no, and yeah, we would be more than willing to do that for the customers. If they want to read once it's done, that's not a problem. We can do that fairly quick for them. Typically, the process for what's kind of been happening is once the bylaw is passed, we send a letter with a copy of the bylaw to the REA requesting the contact information for the customer and all the assets that are attached, all that kind of stuff, so that we can go out there and start to talk to those customers, let them know. There was also onus within the agency ruling that the REA is supposed to let all their customers know this is taking place. But we also not had any calls from customers.
So that would be part of it, to make sure that you are contacting them and it's not left to them to decipher a bill. The bills are difficult to figure out the difference. When you're in the business, but distribution versus retailer, it's not an easy thing to figure out where's the cost coming from. Yeah. And then what do I do about it if I don't like this part of it? Who do I contact? So I really appreciate that you've made that offer, and I think that's
And over and above
essential.
that, I can leave my contact information, and any one of those residents can contact me, and I can get them set up with the appropriate person.
Would you be okay if we
internally.
put that on
Absolutely.
our
Yep.
website or something like that? I don't know if that's even possible, but
Sure.
to make it very, very transparent so that people aren't saying something different. So, and I just want to clarify. So I understand if we're in a municipality, then it's not a farm rate; it's a residential rate.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Dallin?
Thank you, Your Worship. Appreciate it. Thank you for coming in also. This is an interesting situation to sort of get ourselves into, the franchise agreements and how it affects the annexed areas. So it's coming down to cost. I'm seeing information from two sides of the same coin, and you're suggesting that Battle River down to the same comparison, and I think they may not have. I don't know myself. If I read you correctly, you're suggesting their rural rate to your rural rate versus your rural rate going to residential should the bylaw pass, and these subscribers now go to Fortis, and they'll be you're being charged your residential rate. So we're not really comparing apples to apples. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that's what's in front of us, two rather conflicting points of view on cost.
You're totally 100% correct. It's not an apples to apples comparison,
Okay.
right? And that's the big challenge when you compare any of the rates.
Okay.
With any REA, it doesn't matter.
Right.
It's not an apples to apples
Yeah.
comparison. So that's why when we heard and seen the price difference, we're like, well, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
And from what we can tell, it's a farm rate to farm rate comparison.
Okay.
That's not what we're talking about.
Okay. If I may then, from one step further then, Beaumont Agricultural Society is outside our borders here right now, and they're a rather large piece of land, and they're residential and agricultural property. They would be considered residential?
That one we have to figure out. I didn't hear about that one, and that one we have to think about because that
Yeah.
one actually fall into a small general service rate. I don't know.
Okay.
We would call 45%.
Okay.
And for that customer too, if they wanted us to do a rate comparison, that's the one.
Okay, I guess what I'm getting in a roundabout sort of way is that this decision is difficult for me personally because I do feel that people in the annexed area should not have to pay more because of annexation that they had no control over. And that's a fair point. We're all consumers, all out-of-pocket monies, and we're seeing people saying $175 a month for their acreage, or in the case of
Councillor,
Spoon.
we're not debating, just you're asking clarifying questions.
Clarifying questions. So my question is then, if we were past the bylaw and you offered to discuss these people's rate comparisons over the last 12 months, and in the case that you found a lot of them to be paying more, are you prepared to negotiate with them to give them some comfort that it didn't work out as well as you thought it was going to go? You're prepared to negotiate with them. It's putting you on the spot, I know that, but this is a financial matter to a lot of people.
We're not in the ability to negotiate rates. Our rates are approved by the AEC, and they said that.
That's what I want to hear to say that for the record.
Yeah. So we can't go in there and negotiate or give a special deal to someone here or there, right?
Yeah.
It's the criteria of what they need. If they meet the criteria for rate 61, which is a large general service rate, then that's what they will be put on.
Okay. I wanted to get that clarified. Thank you very much.
Councillor Van Newkirk, final question.
So we received this communication from Fortis late in the day, and we're going through it. And last part of the letter, you outlined an additional consideration section. It says a further consideration we think is relevant for council to consider is the non-safety related issues that arise from an intermittent distribution system. I found it curious that was included. Can you maybe just explain why that situation was included in here to help me understand that?
Sure.
Thank you.
So what I wanted to present was some of the issues that we have today, have had in the past, and will continue to have with intermingled distribution companies running within the same municipality borders. So that was a prime example of where our main line feeds that customer, and Battle River's only servicing the pole and the transformer for that customer. So it just sort of laid out some of those examples and some of the situations that we have to look at when we see these types of examples, being that working with REAs in the same municipality borders, where we end up funding the costs for that particular service, and the Battle River taps off of that. So in reality, the complication here is, who does that customer phone? Does he phone Fortis or does he phone Battle River? That question's out there because you have two distribution companies working within your municipal boundaries. When the lights are out, people know to phone Fortis Alberta, not Battle River, or as an example. So the example was just one of the examples that we face with having intermingled distribution companies operating within a municipal boundary, and I just gave it as an example.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're clear. Apparently not anymore. Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Your Worship. And you said something, sir, that I just wanted to follow up on. So the rates are set regardless of who the distributor is? So your rates and the rates of the Battle River?
With Battle River, they're not set by the ABC, their rates. They're set by their board of directors.
So they could offer cheaper rates?
They can change
Because they're a non-profit organization.
Yeah, they can change their rates on the fly.
That makes it very difficult for us to know which way to go here. So, but I appreciate what you just said, and I think that's the dilemma that we're facing. Thank you.
Councillor Mark.
Thank you. Just a clarifying question. You talked about the comparison that you said you're willing to go out and engage on. From a process perspective, are you able to do that prior to the bylaw passing, or do you need to have that bylaw passed to have that information to be able to make that comparison?
The challenging part of that is we don't have the information to do that comparison. We don't have the customer information. We know where they are ish, but there's a lot of complication with it being in the rural area without having all of their information and their data because it belongs to Battle River.
Okay,
so that's sharing customer data, which could be solutions there. So we don't have the proper data.
Okay, sorry, you didn't quite answer my question. Can you do it? I appreciate it's a challenge, and you have to work with the.
If they came forward with their bills to us and wanted to sit down and go through that, then yes, we can do that for them.
Thank you. So you need the REA to be able to come forward and engage with you to be able to complete that comparison.
Or the
customer.
Or the customer. They would have to check with their customer before they can get that information out.
Okay.
But if the customers came forward, absolutely.
Thank you.
And as I offered earlier, I can leave my contact information, and they are more than happy to contact me with their information.
All right. Thanks once again. Thanks very much for coming in. Appreciate all the information. Okay. Which brings... Apologize. Brings us to item 5A, regular council meeting minutes. Do I have a member of council prepared to move the minutes of the regular council meeting on September 10th, 2019? Yeah, we got to get it on the motion, and then you can do whatever you want. All right, Councillor Daniluk.
So moved, Your Worship. Thank you.
Councillor Barnhart, discussion on the motion.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. Item 5A, the minutes of the regular council meeting of September 10th. It's I'm sure it's a typo that Councillor Hendricks gave his regrets. He was not there. However, he moved the agenda to be approved. So I know that maybe we can check the tape and see who actually did approve the agenda that day. And the second item is the intercity forum. It's mentioned in business item. That would be 8A. And it is intercity forum rather than inner city forum, as it says in one place in the minutes. So with those two changes, I'd be pleased to support them.
Councillor Daniluk, accept a friendly amendment to the minutes?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor? That carries unanimously. There are no public hearings tonight. There are no registered presentations, which leads us to business item 8A, tax recovery process implementation. I apologize. I'm battling a cold.
Good evening, Your Worship, and the rest of council and the public. Before you is a request for decision for the implementation of the tax recovery process. Background on this, notices of assessment are issued on or before May 31st of each year and typically due June 30th. The properties mentioned within the RFD are in arrears at this time and therefore subject to tax sale. Finance staff made considerable effort to contact and arrange payment to bring accounts to good standing to avoid this process. I think we had roughly 9 and we're left with 3 at this point, so we were able to collect on those. We have reached out again as a courtesy to inform the landowners of the parcels mentioned within of the process tonight with the goal of receipt of payment prior to the proposed auction date of December 11th. This allows them to be removed from the process. Regardless, per the MGA, we may take steps to recover these taxes in arrears, the process of which is outlined within the document. So tonight, the response options and alternatives are: 1, that council offer the parcels for sale at public auction on December 11th, pursuant to Division 8 of the MGA. Number 2, that council set a reserve bid that is close as reasonably possible to the market value of the respective parcels. Listed here are the assessment values. And number 3, that council set forth the following conditions on the public auction listed below. Thank you. At this time, we'll open the floor to questions.
Is there a member of council prepared to move that council offer the parcels for sale at public auction on December 11, 2019, pursuant to Division 8 of the Municipal Government Act? Councillor Damlick.
So moved, Your Worship. Thank you.
All right. Are there questions on the motion or comments on the motion this evening? Councillor Stowe.
Thank you, Worship. Through your Worship, I think to the presenter. Are you able to tell us the amounts owing on these properties, or is that?
So through your worship to Councillor Stout, the amounts listed are in the background section for each of the tax rolls, and that's the arrears amount.
Any further questions or discussion on the motion? Councillor Hendricks.
Sure, thank you. Just a question. Of course, the walk-in plan is helpful, but certainly an address would be more helpful. Are we allowed to have an address to understand the locations?
Through your worship to Councillor Hendricks, through the Freedom of Information, Privacy and Protection Act, I believe we cannot provide that information.
Councillor McGrath-Smith.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not sure why it matters what the arrears, what the value is, or where they are. I think we have the process in place and they haven't followed it. So I'm not sure why we need to clarifying questions on that.
Councillor Stowe, that was for you.
No, I wanted to fully appreciate the size of what was at stake here, basically, and where we get to this process. I have no question about the necessity or the legality of what's being proposed. Simply, I wanted to get an impression of the order of magnitude of what was at stake here. That's my concern, and the question's already been answered. I obviously should have read the brief more carefully. So thank you for that. Can I ask another question?
Sure.
Through your worship to the presenter, and again, I think you've already answered this actually as well, but can you assure us that every measure is taken to ensure that the debtors know the amount of debt they owe, and that they've been given every opportunity to pay it, and that they're aware of the consequences of what non-payment here leads to?
Through your worship to Councillor Stout, the staff take every effort to contact multiple times. The dates that the taxes are owed are listed on the assessment. We are constantly in contact with each of the landowners for these respective parcels, and doing what we can to arrange payment for these.
Great. Thank you. That's what I expected you to say, but I wanted you to confirm that for me. Thank you.
Councillor Hendricks?
Worship, just to clarify why I asked, the location is just under the Municipal Government Act's Section 174, and I just want to make sure that we're not in contravention as councillors with respect to pecuniary interest. We don't know who these people are, but I'm assuming they're not related. They're not related by way of the act. So hence the question. So,
Fair enough.
thank you.
Through your worship to Councillor Hendricks, administration has no reason to believe that any of councillors have any pecuniary interest in any of these.
Fair enough. Further discussion on the motion? All right, let's call the question. All in favor? Okay, that carries unanimously, which leads us to the second motion of the evening. The council set a reserve bid that is as close as reasonably possible to the market value of the respective parcels. Is there a member of council prepared to move the second motion? Councillor Stout.
So moved, Your Worship.
Discussion on the motion? Councillor Van Duker. Sorry. Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Worship. And a question to Mr. DeBlanco. What happens if this motion didn't pass? What would be the process?
Through your worship to Councillor Barnhart, if this motion did not pass, we'd have to either delay the auction for these, or we would not collect the outstanding amounts owing.
Yeah, it just confuses me a little bit because if you have a motion there, there's a chance council can go one way or the other. Reserve bid means that we would get, if you didn't have reserve bid, you could get less than this amount, and then you would start over again, but you wouldn't have the auction, or what?
Through your worship to Councillor Barnhart, this bid basically puts into place what the market value is. Setting an amount lower than that would allow the reserve bid to be that.
Just quick clarifying.
So the amount is with council, you're asking for council to change the amount, not you're asking. Council could change the amount, but you have to have a reserve bid of some kind.
Right, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And quick clarifying question. Under the MGA, it has to be set at as close to market as possible.
Correct, worship. That is true, yeah.
Does that help you out? Councillor Danluck?
Thank you, Your Worship. The question is simply as on the reserve bid. Mr. Blank, do you have any history in the past what our past council administration have done as a reserve bid that, for example, is 90% has been what we've done in the past, most likely, or every council probably does it differently, but perhaps Mr. Councilor Hendrick may have some history on this. It's happened before, I'm sure. What do we normally do for a reserve bid? I have an idea in my mind, but what has been the convention we've normally been following in the past, if there has been a consistency in the past when these situations have come up?
Through your worship to Councillor Danluck, to my knowledge, we have previously always used the assessment value.
Are there any further discussions on the motion? All right, seeing none, all in favor? That carries unanimously. Which brings us to motion number 3, that council set the following conditions on public auction, and I'm just going to say as in the document because I'm not going to read them. Is there a member of council prepared to move the motion this evening? Councillor Barnhart.
So moved, Your Worship.
Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, that brings us to item 9A, bylaws. Bylaw 944-19, land use bylaw amendment, restricted substance amendments, first reading.
So good evening, Your Worship, members of council and the public. My name is Stephen Raitz, and I am the City of Beaumont's municipal planning intern. And I'm here today to present an amendment to the land use bylaw. This amendment would reduce the separation distance for restricted substance retail stores which sell cannabis. The current separation distance required for cannabis retail stores was introduced in the summer of 2018 in anticipation of recreational cannabis becoming legalized in Canada that following fall. At the time, the separation distance was in alignment with the separation distance for liquor stores. This separation distance for liquor stores has since been removed. Based on council direction in the summer of 2019, administration has investigated approaches and engaged with the public on potential changes to separation distances required for cannabis retail stores. The proposed amendment would reduce the minimum separation distance between cannabis retail stores from 500 meters to 200 meters and shift this regulation from the definition within the land use bylaw to a use standard. By using this approach, potential businesses have several new locations that they would be permitted to locate in, and the development authority would have the ability to use its variance power when processing development applications for cannabis retail stores where appropriate. The approach used in developing this amendment balances the priorities of supporting local economic development while still acknowledging potential public health concerns. Research completed for this amendment has indicated that having cannabis retail stores concentrated in specific areas of the community may result in impacts being disproportionately experienced by marginalized members of the community, as well as co-use of restricted substances and shaping normalized behaviors for youth. Because land uses related to cannabis production, sale, and consumption have only been recently introduced into communities, administration is recommending reducing and not fully removing the separation distance. This is in alignment with the cautious approach used so far when regulating these new types of land uses. Reducing the separation distance acknowledges public health concerns while still significantly opening up opportunities for business development within the community. Additionally, this amendment brings Beaumont closer in alignment with the approach of other municipalities in the region regarding this form of development. And finally, recent engagement completed in the community did not indicate concrete support for any specific options regarding these potential changes. Administration recommends first reading of Bylaw 96119 to proceed with the amendment to the land use bylaw to reduce the separation distance for restricted substance retail stores which sell cannabis.
Thank you very much. Is there a member of council willing to move first reading? Councillor Dialogue.
So move, Your Worship. First reading. Thank you.
Thank you. Open the floor to questions from members of council for the presenters. All right, seeing none. Call the question. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. That was quick and painless. Quick and painless. All right, that brings us to item 9B, Bylaw 960-19, Electric Distribution Service, second and third reading.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm Curtis Blanco, the Director of Finance. Before you this evening is the request for decision for Bylaw 960-19, Electric Distribution Service, second and third reading. Background on this, City of Beaumont has entered into a municipal franchise agreement in 2013 with Fortis Alberta. The recent annexation of the lands by the city increased the municipal boundary. This overlaps with an area serviced by Bow River Power Co-op. The Alberta Utilities Commission received an application from Fortis requesting alignment of the service areas to municipal boundaries in which their municipal franchise agreement grants exclusivity. The Utilities Commission rules in favor of Fortis. However, for the transfer to take place, the city must pass a bylaw requiring so. The municipality has been advised of the AUC rulings to enact the transfer of this infrastructure. The city must pass this bylaw to prohibit other distributors from operating within city boundaries. Engagement that has taken place, the administration has sent out letters to the affected residents informing them that the bylaws first reading was on September 10th, 2019. An ad has been placed in the Beaumont News, as well as a letter was sent to the Bow River Power Co-op advising them of the first reading of this bylaw. Response options and alternatives are that council give second reading to bylaw 960-19, the council give third reading to bylaw 960-19, or that council direct administration on how to proceed. At this time, administration's recommendation is that council give first and second reading to this bylaw. At this time, thank you. At this time, I'll open the floor to questions.
Thank you very much. Is there a member of council willing to move second reading tonight? Councillor Margoff-Swain?
Yes, I'm not prepared to move it. I've got a couple of comments before moving it.
Well, let's go with comments then.
Okay. So thank you, and thanks to administration for pulling the information. I know it was coming thick and fast to you right at the end there, and appreciate the comments from participants here tonight. I guess for me, I understand that this doesn't require a public hearing, this process, but I'd like us council here to discuss the potentially need for that. I'll get into that in a second. Essentially, where I land on this is, I think some of council have made these comments before. Information has come to us quite late here, just given the process. I know where we are. So I'd like to be able to provide more time to be able to brief council on that, particularly around the cost impacts. We've heard two different sides of the story, essentially, one in a letter and one in a presentation today. I'd like an opportunity to be able to get those numbers back and clarify. I'd also like to have provide an opportunity for other residents to be able to come and participate in this process. I appreciate Mr. Waterspoon was able to get here today, but there are a lot of other people who didn't have a chance to participate. And so I think if we had a non-statutory public hearing, that would give an opportunity for folks to be able to participate in that. That would also give administration time to work with the two parties at play here, or three parties, I guess, to be able to bring that information back. So instead of passing second and third reading tonight, I would put the motion forward and wait for discussion first, but my gut would be to lean to pushing for a non-statutory hearing to come back in October here for this. So I'll leave it there and happy to hear the thoughts, comments on it.
Councillor Hendricks.
Worship, and thank you for really laying out sort of my same thoughts. I think that's really where we are. The issue here is we're not here to punish anyone, be it by rates or otherwise, because of an annexation process. Given the divergence of discussion and the math that's significant, I agree. We need to get those facts back to us first. And let's get that sorted out and get our admin under item 3 in terms of options to provide us with what are the facts, what are the issues here. And let's make sure we get it right. And I like the idea of a non-statutory public hearing. Why not? Unless this is a huge rush, which I don't believe it is.
No.
We've been a council that's been very open to public hearings and public discussion, and I wouldn't want to change that now. So that's where I'd fall on this.
Yeah, no, we're definitely not in a rush. Nobody's going to die over this tomorrow if we don't pass this tonight. Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Worship. Completely agree with Councillors Margoff-Swain and Hendricks. Couldn't have said it better myself. And would support a non-statutory public hearing, and for all the reasons mentioned, but also for my question was going to be why are we doing this now? It's I think a pause would also enable the 17 affected consumers an opportunity to consult with Fortis as well and get the estimations that they've already described. They can't give until the customer approaches them or until the bylaw is passed, which seems to me that the process is backwards there. So I'd like time for that to happen for all those who feel concerned or affected by it, and also to represent back to council what their revised thoughts are on any kind of public hearing, having had that information with the opportunity to get that information. So, yep, I'm in support.
Okay. Councillor Van Newkirk.
Thank you. First off, I would support the idea Councillor Margoff-Swain has floated and the motion that he sounds like he will likely put forward. For me, the decision comes down to what's best for the affected residents, and it comes down to price and service. We've had a conversation tonight about price, and we've heard conflicting numbers on that as stated, but what we haven't talked about is we haven't talked about service levels or service metrics. What we didn't hear was any issues, any current service issues from the affected party. Mr. Witherspoon up here tonight stated there's been no service issues. So It brings me back to the question of why, which is what Councillor Stout just said, and the answer to that is, I think, because there was an AUC ruling in favor of Fortis against the REA that had a decision and makes it the ability for this bylaw to come forward, the way I understand it anyway. So that, I think, is the why. So when we come back to price and service, I think we have to give the affected parties an opportunity to look at price, and I would invite Fortis or Battle River to talk about the service metrics and explain to us why it's a good decision for the members or for council to support this around service. I'm sure that there are statistics taken and kept internally for response times and response measures, and I invite them to share that with the residents who are affected. So thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, so I can see the writing on the table, or the writing on the wall. I'd like to make the motion that we defer second and third reading, that we schedule a non-statutory public hearing, and that we refer this back to administration to work more with Fortis, Battle River, and the residents affected. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Danlock.
Thank you, Worship. I also am comfortable with the suggestion this evening as well. I would suggest that we put some urgency in a way to it, not going to drag out too long in the process. I mean, I know we had one resident today speaking in the open forum. Other people are probably from the audience are probably affected but can't speak tonight. There are 70 people affected. We've already emailed them or sent them a letter once. We sent them a letter again saying, if you want to get a comparison, the offer is there from Fortis. Take advantage of that. We should get this process done fairly quickly and not drag it out too long. I'm not saying we would, but I say we should put a little bit of urgency from our end to have this process done quickly and have this issue back brought forward as soon as possible.
CEO?
Just wanted to make a couple of clarifying comments through your worship, the rest of council. This is not about rates and it's not about service. This is about a ruling and about an exclusivity agreement that we signed with Fortis. Whether this bylaw gets passed or not, this agreement is going to be upheld through other measures. So I don't want to, my point in saying that is, and the statutory public hearing, that's fine, is I don't want to build some expectations that the administration is about to do all of this detailed analysis on who's got the better rates and who delivers the best service. Because that's not what this is about. This is a bylaw that upholds a franchise agreement that we have with Fortis Alberta.
Councillor McGowan.
Councillor Venue could jump to the mic very quickly there, so he's clearly got a comment to the CAO's comments. I'll defer to him for now.
Cool, thank you. Through your worship to the CEO, the ruling and the decision that's made in front of us, I respect your comments. For the residents, they see service and they see price, and that's what has been communicated to me. Had the ruling not went in favor of Fortis and the way it did, the way I understand it, is that status quo would have been maintained, and that in time, when the municipality grew, and I don't know the exact terminology, but in time when the municipality grows, the service would transfer over to Fortis, and the status quo would be what has happened from the years past until now. So, so this change in this bylaw expedites what already would have happened in the past, given the historical mechanisms that were in place. That's how I understand it. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Councillor CEO response.
Yeah, the only response I would have is because of that ruling, you're right, that this doesn't just happen by default, it now happens by ruling. We have consulted with our legal, and this bylaw is fully within our right to pass and to implement, as I would believe is happening in the reverse.
To delay that for me is to give up residents an opportunity to provide that, and I would encourage administration to come back with those arguments you made when it comes back in front of council for second and third reading. So, if we delay this a couple of weeks and the residents are able to work it out and there are no issues during a public hearing, then we move forward. So, I support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barnett.
Thank you. I do support the motion, and I would hope, although I know this is a bit odd because we're having a statutory hearing after first reading, but
non-statutory.
and I appreciate your comments, Mr. Schwartz, but I'm just wondering whether we can have the clarity, because I don't think it's just the time. I think it's really the clarity about why, and why is exclusivity needed, and what's the impact of not having it. It might be second nature to some people, but it's not for a lot of our residents. They don't understand the difference between the distribution and the retailer, and I think members of council have been taken a bit off guard by some of the information that came our way that was more than we had time to read and absorb. So it's time, but clarity as well. So I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, seeing no further comments, call the vote. All in favor? Out. That carries unanimously. Second and third reading is deferred. And we're going to call a 5-minute recess because I got to take a break. Apologize. If you guys are going to have that discussion, can you go out there? No offense. Okay, so brings us to item number 10, councillors' inquiries and reports. There are members of council wishing to make it. Well, I'll start with inquiries. So members of council with questions of administration this evening. Councillor Van Newkirk.
No, thank you. Not a question / comment, I think. Just a question to administration if they had received many concerns along the way on the repaving in Colonial over the summer. It was extended because of weather and timing and stuff, but it seemed, as a person who drives by there every day, that despite all those things, it seemed to go without a hitch, and I didn't hear a whole bunch of issue from residents. Just wondering if administration had heard much from residents as that process went through.
CEO.
Yes, thank you very much. Through the mayor to Councillor Van Newkirk. We did not receive any complaints. In fact, we received the reverse. There was a number of positive comments about the specific contractor and some of the things that they did over and above that was required. The residents responded and cooperated extremely well and were patient through the long season. And then we did the final lift with her a couple Saturdays ago. And again, no negative feedback at all.
Perfect. Well, thank you. So that's exactly where I was going with it. I was going for kudos on that one. The struggles with weather and timing this summer were incessant on every project out there. And anecdotally, walking around the neighborhood, I had heard the stories of contractors helping residents to get to their vehicles, to get to haul groceries in, and all those kinds of things. And I think that's phenomenal. It went over and above. So just kudos to the contractor through administration for that. So thank you.
Councillor Daniluk.
Thank you, Richard. Just a comment to council administration. I was able to attend the opening of Sheet Change last evening, and a couple of residents were there and recognized I was on council, and they said to me that they were current users of our Beaumont transit system to South Edmonton, and they're using it for about a year now, and both residents were extremely happy with the service. Buses are always on time, drivers are courteous, and buses are very full. There's only standing only last couple of days on the bus going to Edmonton. So kudos to us from those residents about the transit system in Beaumont currently. Thank you.
Any further questions for admin or statements by council? I apologize to members of council tonight. I did have a very nice report. But I'm dying, so I will not going to read it tonight. I will send it to you all via email and include it tomorrow. I apologize. CAO update. CAO.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, rest of council, members of the public. A few items. Tonight's late submissions, just wanted to make a comment about that. We try and avoid that as much as possible. That said, we received, but with some pretty significant information, and when we did, we sent it to you immediately. I think the idea of holding things off until you get a chance to digest it certainly is appreciative, but we're not going to make the decision to not give it to you just because it's the last minute. So we'll try not to do that by habit, but in the interest of full disclosure and transparency, which is a key value of this council, we wanted to make sure we got it. So we didn't purposely dump it on you. Quick update on I'm going to try and say it, Councillor Stout, and I'm going to mess it up. On the armorial bearings update. Our application has been accepted by the federal government, and it's been assigned to a Herald of Arms from the officer of the Canadian Heraldic Authority. Did I get it right? Close? Okay. And by coincidence, our next contact with them is on Friday. We have a phone call set with the Herald of Arms, and they'll start the next steps of the process, which I'm assuming is the design and then consultation and so on and so forth. So it's progressive. AUMA starts tomorrow. Big day for Councillor Hendricks. You better be there. He receives his Distinguished Service Award. I believe that starts at about 2:20 tomorrow afternoon in Hall A. So we're all pretty excited about that, and well done. Congratulations once again. One other item was a request for transit numbers. They'll be up on the website tomorrow. They'll be updated. So thank you for that request and reminder. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. quickly going back to item number 10, Councillor Barnard.
One to draw. Thank you, Councillor Malcolm-Swain, for reminding me. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you to the administration for the support they recently provided to the Beaumont Night Market to help us certainly sponsor the event. And just wanted to make sure that councillors and the mayor are well aware of the fact that on October 5th, this big event is happening in our city, and that the city of Beaumont is the largest sponsor of the event. Praying for good weather, so hopefully that's going to happen. Right now there are 76 vendors and 4 food trucks that are scheduled to come into town. Facebook Live is set up for this Friday, as well as Global TV on October 1st. And I think that's essentially it. We're expecting a big crowd. We've had upwards to 5,000 people come in the past, so you should see some action on October 5th, Saturday night, from 3 till 10 p.m.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
All right, which brings us to item 12A, correspondence. We received a letter from Fortis, Alberta. Can I get a member of council to make up the motion to accept for information? Councillor Stout.
So moved, Your Worship.
All in favor? That carries unanimously. Which brings us to item 12B, a letter that we received from the Battle River Power Co-op. Is our member of council prepared to make a motion to accept that item as information? Councillor Van Newkirk.
So moved.
Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? That carries unanimously. There are no notice of motion, which brings us to item 14, closed session. Is there a member of council prepared to move that we move into closed session for the evening? Councillor Danlock.
So moved, Your Worship. Thank you.
Discussion on the motion? All in favor? That carries unanimously. We're in closed session, so we'll just take a brief pause to reset the room, and everybody that needs to be here can be out.